Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, bonjour. Je vous remercie pour être ici. Thank you very much for being here today for our Canada Soccer Women's National Team media call with head coach Bev Priestman. She will be talking about the upcoming 2 matches against Nigeria for the April window. We also will be sharing in the next few minutes our roster selection for the camp, which will include all 22 players, as well as 7 additional players that Bev can highlight. And again, that will come shortly in your inboxes. And so what we can do, we'll start with questions. We have the raised hand feature before we start, and we'll get going in the next minute. Just make sure we have everybody there. And Gemma from Canadian Press, if you'd like, you can start. And I just want to make sure Post Media will then go second. Don't see Derek quite there yet. So Canadian Press, did you want to begin?
Hi, Bev. Hope you're having a great day. I'm wondering if you can start by telling us a little bit about what makes this roster so special.
Yeah, I think it's a blended roster of, past of celebration, connection with our fans of the Olympic gold medalists. But I think for me as a coach, I have to keep moving the team forward. And I think the 7 additions to that roster help us make sure that we're assessing players ready for the summer in terms of qualification and now a journey to the World Cup. So I want to widen the pool and make sure that we're doing exactly as we did before we went to the Olympics and leaving no stone unturned to build for the future as well. So I think it's it's difficult to have a roster of 29, and obviously all of those players aren't going to get on the pitch, but I think I wanted to maximize the opportunity to have players in camp and see them in the environment. So I'm excited. We haven't had youth activity in the pandemic. We had the under-20 qualification tournament, and Zoe Burns is an example who for me was a standout in that tournament, has had the opportunity to come in. It's been a big part of our system to bring in youth. And she's one of probably many to come in the next sort of 12 months as the under-20s and under-17s move through their phases.
Thank you. And Derek, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Bev. Good to see you.
Hi, Derek.
I got a couple of questions for you. First of all, I just as the head coach of the women's team and having won the Olympics and then seeing what the men's team is doing, and I just want to just get your thought on the state of soccer in Canada, both men's and women's side, and how you feel being part of that, and just sharing the excitement of both your team and what the men's team has been doing.
Yeah, I think it's incredible. I left the game yesterday feeling like really proud to be part of this organization. I think, we are on the up, and I think, I personally know John, the staff that were involved. There's a massive amount of work from both the players and staff on both programs to put Canada on the map. And I think, with the support, the investment, the vision, really, I think that's coming to life, and it's only really getting started on the men's side. I think that's the exciting part. And for us as the women's program, we draw inspiration on both sides. I was inspired yesterday to see what they achieved, and no doubt they were also inspired in the summer. So it's incredible. I think it's a great time to be involved, and both programs will certainly motivate each other and push each other on to new heights.
Yeah, and that was kind of part of my second question, is the fact that it takes something to get to a certain level to become Olympic champions, but then how hard is it to kind of sustain that level, and with new players coming in and trying to keep that level of performance now going into the CONCACAF championships this summer? Yeah,
listen, it's going to be difficult. I think in many ways, you've heard me talk about the analogy of the mountain. The new mountain of a World Cup is bigger than ever. I think, you've seen that we historically have not necessarily struggled, but we haven't had that same level of success in that area. So that's a totally different mountain that will take totally different things. I think this summer, we can't underestimate what's in front of us, and we have to stay in the now, because I look back at the last, Olympic qualification type results, late goals. It's harder than ever now in the women's game that it's been. And, many ways, when you play a team that bunkers in and it's beat a block, and it's really difficult, and I always feel really good when we play tier 1 teams, top 10, games more open, suits us. It's a different challenge, and we definitely won't be underestimating what we've got, the opportunity we've got in the summer, because we've got a World Cup qualification, but we also have a chance to qualify very early for an Olympic Games. And so, yeah, we will keep moving forward in terms of sustaining success with all the little things that you need to move up the mountain.
Thanks, Bev.
Thanks.
Thank you. Har, followed by Laura, please.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned Zoe Burns. Who are the other 6 players that you're going to call up? The additional 7, you mentioned Zoe Burns. Who are the other 6?
Yeah, it's Sarah Strategakis, Marie Yasmin, Sabrina Delangelo, Chloe Lacasse, Victoria Pickett, Surya Yeka, and Zoe. Yeah, I don't know if you want me to talk to any of them, but yeah, they're the players.
Yeah, what are you expecting from them? What have you seen from them that you wanted to call them in? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, some are repeated calls now of post-Olympics. Chloe Lacasse has been outstanding for us. You've seen the debut from Marie Yasmin. She's just sort of starting her journey in with us. But I feel like Sarah Strategakis has done really, really well in the games that I've watched from afar. And so for me, she very much warranted a return back in. She's a player that's been heavily invested in our youth system. And, it's just now moving her on towards the women's national team, because I think she's got something to offer.
Hey, Bev, thanks for the time. Hope you enjoyed the game yesterday. When you look back at She Believes and what you saw from the squad there, what when you were reflecting on that tournament, what did you see? What did you like? What maybe are areas that you'd like to see some improvement?
Laura, I assume you mean Arnold Clark Cup.
Arnold Clark. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, that's good. I was going to go back a whole game. So no, that's good. And listen, I felt that the Arnold Clark Cup, it was not a pleasant surprise for me, but I think I didn't know what I was going to get going into that because of where the players were at season-wise, after the back of, what a major tournament and that high of that success can take out of players that were all ready for Christmas. And for me, I wanted to draw a line in the sand in that tournament to say, right, okay, we achieved a gold medal, but now it's about starting again, and we start again from nothing. And I felt that we could compete even, out of season. We didn't do it across 90 minutes, but I personally felt on the sideline, I seen some shifts in a positive way, and that's only the start, really. We've got to keep demanding and pushing them standards. But yeah, I thought we could compete with 3, let's be honest, top nations. Disappointed, obviously, not to get that 3rd game and go and win the tournament. But in the grand scheme of things, it definitely gave me a good look at players, and some players who I felt came in and performed very, very well. And then you go and add the little bits. You would have heard me talk about set plays. If I look at a CONCACAF tournament, I've seen that with the under-20s. When you're playing teams that play 5 at the back and bunker in, a set play at times can open the game up for you and things. So we're clear on the little things we need to get better at. But I personally, overall, was really happy with what I got to see for the group.
When you approach, as we get closer to, this CONCACAF tournament in the summer, World Cup and Olympic qualification, how do you approach setting your roster? Do you start with a blank piece of paper and add names, or are you looking at your previous rosters and subtracting? How does it work? Yeah,
it's really difficult because in many ways, the thing that Arnold Clark Cup didn't give me that much freedom to do, I think, was to really experiment. I was brave. I put in Marie Yasmin. I got, debuts and things in that sense, but really to not fully assess players. There's some players that have repeatedly came in, Surya Yeka, etc., that I think we still need to get answers on between now and when we do name that roster. So, this upcoming window and a June window will be critical to that. I think, it's a really what it takes to beat a block type. If I talk tactically, what we're going to face might be very different to what it takes to beat a Sweden, to beat a Germany, as an example. So it'll be the balance of the blend of that group. But at the same time, if you're a player and I see a player as part of a World Cup group in 2023, they've got to be at that tournament as well. So it'll be a difficult, I actually find it really difficult at the moment to get that group down, and that's going to be the interest and challenge to get the blend right.
Thanks, Bev.
Thank you. Sandra Persina, please, followed by Megan Johnson.
Thanks, Richard. Hey, Bev, hope you're doing well. I just wanted to maybe touch upon your goaltending situation. We know that this is the end of the road for Steph LeBay. You've still got Erin in the fold, Sabrina there, as well as Caitlin, excuse me. So where do you see this succession plan going? Is that number one spot up for grabs? And could you even look towards somebody like Anna Karpenko to potentially be part of your roster going forward?
Thanks, Sandra. Yeah, it's, with Steph's retirement and obviously wanting to honour her achievements and what she did for us in the summer, that sort of not detours us in a way of, we don't, obviously you can't go into a camp with a massive amount of goalkeepers because you just can't. So I think after this particular window, we will be going into the depth of our goalkeeping like we did in the Arnold Clark Cup, because I think you're right, we absolutely have to plan for the future. If you're asking about the number one spot right now, Kaylin, as you would have seen reflected in the minutes in the Arnold Clark Cup, started the games, and then I thought Sabrina came in and did an outstanding job. It's great to see Erin McLeod now starting week in, week out for Orlando. So we're actually blessed with talent in that area, but we absolutely do need to look below that and start looking at youth and players who are earning their trade internationally. The goalkeeping coach has been doing a lot of digging on performances around the world. So I think with this window, you've got the Steph piece, and then from there, starting to look and invest in future goalkeepers.
I'm curious, and if I can just follow up with this, do you have a preference with your goalkeepers playing more in North America, or do you prefer them playing in Europe?
Yeah, I think it's probably what's right for them. I always have this conversation with players. For me, the best environment for a player is where they're a happy player, and some of that relates to, relationships, family, lifestyle. But for me personally, I think both leagues bring different things. You've seen the NWSL. There's a score line that you just can't predict. I would say it's super competitive, transitional, lots of shots. Which you see Kaylin and Erin have done a great job of dealing with. And then you've got the European, which for me is probably more technical, tactical driven. So I think the right environment depends on the players. I don't have a strong preference. I think both are different leagues that bring different things.
Thanks so much, Bev. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Next would be Megan Johnson, please, from TSN.
Thanks, Richard, and hi, Bev. I just wanted to follow up actually on your answer there to Sandra's question just on the goalkeeping. Wondering if you could maybe share your plan for Steph in these upcoming games. Will she see time in both games, maybe like half of each, or wondering, if you can share your plan and basically how do you balance, obviously, making sure Steph gets her due and gets her proper send-off versus, as you said, preparing for these upcoming qualifiers?
Yeah, I think I can share that BC Place, we'll get to see Steph play for sure. The volume and the minutes and things, to be determined. I think the four goalkeepers, to give them credit, they've got to come in and be ready to perform. Ultimately, we want to win. We always want to win. So, but I do have a plan that Steph will definitely feature at BC Place.
And then just another question, if I may, just on the U20 players in that group, and you talked about Zoe Burns getting the call. What other players stood out for you during the CONCACAF tournament? And obviously, if you have already seen time in call-ups to the senior team, but are there any others that stood out for you in their performance?
Yeah, I think what was difficult, as a director of program from afar, I felt that obviously the very end games were the biggest test, and by that point the 7 games in with 1 day turnarounds and things, so it actually was very difficult to get a real assessment of the group. But Jade Rose, for example, opted to leave her in school. It was a struggle for her to even get released for the 20s. So took the bigger picture there. We know exactly what Jade Rose can do, and then there's a lot of talent in that group. I think what I'm keen to see is how ready they are physically, more than anything. I think there's some work to do there to push now towards a World Cup. There's definitely talent there. It's now a readiness of being able to compete with senior players and the demands physically of that environment. So yeah, I think there was some great individual performances, but for me, Zoe looked the most ready to come into our environment and compete.
Great. Thanks, Bev.
Thank you. Brandon from Canucks Abroad, please.
Thanks there, Richard. Hey, Bev. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day, as always, to do these for us. I know you touched briefly earlier on Sarah Stratigakis. So maybe a question for me, more in the vein of Marie Yasmin. She scored at the weekend, I believe. Put in a very good shift at the Arnold Clark Club. Just maybe what you saw out of her performance there, and as well as in league play as well.
Yeah, I think Marie Yasmin's a different profile to what we've got naturally in the midfield. I think we have, technical players, Desiree Scott, we've got a different blend. I think Marie Yasmin falls in the sense of like she can get around the pitch a lot, and the way that we currently play, that's really needed in there. But I also felt that she had an ability to play on 1 and 2 touch. And, in many ways I threw into the fire in that Spain game. That's a lot to take in tactically, how the level of defending that you have to do against Spain. But I felt I needed to see her, and I think she'll only grow from that experience. But, in training, you wouldn't have known she'd never been in with us. And I think that's always a good sign of a player. She's committed. She seems very diligent in where she's heading. So, yeah, I think her ability to play in 1 and 2 touch and her mobility to get around the field and our movement stood out to me a lot. And
a second question, if I may here, I know you also touched previously, following to Megan's previous question on some of the U20 players that, shone at the championships this past spring. Was there a temptation to maybe bring a couple of other players? I know, obviously Olivia Smith's been seen at the senior level in the past, but, a couple of others from that group as well, like Nicola Small or Simia Wujel, for example, who, all of those players who shone at that competition.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think the nature, again, as I touched on at the start, the 22 plus, looking at the immediate future, which is only 2 camps away. I'm a big believer that, you've got to bring them in at the right time. And for me, if I'm bringing in a youth player, I think it's not just technically, tactically, but physically. And I think, I've had conversations with players around being more physically ready to play at this level. And so they're on a journey and we're putting everything into them. But I think by the time that 20s World Cup comes, then players should be ready to go. And I'm excited to see them tested properly in terms of ability to play a top team when you're not 7 games in. So yeah, absolutely. There's some talent there. When I believe players are ready, I'll always invest in youth. That's been a big part of my background, but also the program to get us where we are. I think it's a balancing act right now of the celebration series and the players that for me have warranted both in off camp and on camp performances right now.
Much appreciated, Bev, and thanks for the time on all those answers.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Raheem, please.
Hi, Bev, this is Raheem from Last One Sports. I just want to ask, Laura mentioned a bit about it, but with Nigeria, what type of test will Nigeria bring to Canada? I noticed that they have some players playing in Europe and in the US, and they're the defending African champions. What kind of test will they bring to Canada, getting prepared for the World Cup qualifying and the Olympic qualifying?
Thank you. Yeah, I think Nigeria will be a really tough test. I think watching them, they're more organised than they've been before. And they have an athleticism that will compete with ours. I think that's definitely worth noting. And we can't underestimate them. The games in the past with Nigeria, Canada, Nigeria have been, difficult games. I think in terms of preparing for what we've got coming up this summer, there's tendencies that relate to some of the CONCACAF teams that we're going to face. For example, player-to-player marking. We don't face that generally as a nation, both in the way that we develop players and probably a lot on the world stage. It doesn't really work like that. So I think that, and then the lethal in transition. So for us, it'll give us a great test for some teams that were likely to play in the summer. And also an African experience, because again, if you look historically, I would hate to say how many times we played Brazil, for example, in the past 4 years. We have a massive amount of experience against certain teams, but we have a little bit of a gap in African styles. And I think you talk about that mountain and next year's World Cup. It's another experience that we can use to help us move forward.
All right, thanks.
So thank you very much. And we'll just wrap up just to maybe comment a little bit about some of the celebrations. Of course, these are our 2 international matches. Just Christine St. Clair celebrating her 185th goal, as well as obviously Olympic champions, chance to celebrate with the fans in BC. And part 3, we have confirmed that we have 5 new members of the Canada Soccer Hall of Fame. Brittany Timko, Baxter, Karina LeBlanc, Randy Hermes, as well as from this year, Martina Franco and Reen Wilkinson, that will also be in the crowd and celebrated at halftime. So just tell us a little bit about the importance of celebrating both our accomplishments as well as some of our past great accomplishments.
Yeah, I think even just being at the game yesterday, I think, that moment at home and being with your fans, I think that's something this team didn't get to experience. In the moment where, you go and achieve something like that, you've worked your whole career for. If I look at Christine, she's in her hometown, she's broken a record, she's got a gold medal. She didn't get to share that with family and friends in the moment. And so I think being at home and connecting with our fans really, really special. But at the same time, I think, we'll also be focused on where we're heading. But I think Steph's retirement, Sinclair's achievements, as well as those players that came before us, were all an integral part of the achievements, not only in the gold and the bronze medals. I'm excited and looking forward to having them around the team, because I think that always connects you with where the team's been and also where it's heading. So it's going to be a great 2 nights on the West Coast, and I'm looking forward to a packed stadium.
Thank you very much, Bev. That will wrap up our media call, Canada Soccer Women's National Team Celebration Tour with head coach Bev Priestman. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.